Welcome to the Begataway Podcast, episode number 8. We launch in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back. This is the Mayor, Gary Boylan, and boy, do we have something special for you. Steven and I sat down this week with a legend of the game, Dave Morrow, founder of Warrior Sports, the gear you guys all play with, and he's also the founder of the MLL, which Steven plays in, among other things. So, total innovator, legend of the game, gold medalist, national player of the year in college, really special interview. We were really lucky to get him on, and Steven actually, as a Warrior athlete, was very excited to hear about the new innovations that Dave has up his sleeve. His team over at Warrior, I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Warp, but we'll dive into that a little bit in the episode. But yeah, they have some little tricks up their sleeve, and I'll tell you what, the game is changing for the better, guys. Warrior Sports really has some neat stuff cooking. So let's go ahead and dive into that interview. And you know what, apologize for the first couple minutes. We had a little bit of feedback, and we're not experts. So the first 4 or 5 minutes, there's a little bit of a tick in the background. So hang in there, and it goes away. We got Dave Morrow on, a Michigan native, went on to play at Princeton University, 3-time All-American, national champ in 1992, 2-time NCAA Defenseman of the Year, NCAA Player of the Year, I believe he was the last defender to do so, first-round NLL pick, 2-time World Lacrosse Championship Gold Medalist, All-World in 98, founder of Warrior Sports, this is such a long bio, creator of the Titanium Lacrosse Shaft, and co-founder of Major League Lacrosse. Woo! Anything else we missed in there?
I don't know, but
it's a lot. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, makes me kind of feel old, I guess.
All right, Brooksy, dive into that first question.
I'm from Illinois, and the Midwest was just like lacrosse was unheard of out in the East Coast. That people would play lacrosse in the Midwest, and you know your background coming from Michigan. What was it like playing lacrosse in Michigan when you were growing up, and what attracted you to try to take it to the next level?
Yeah, so I grew up playing hockey. Hockey was my main sport. I played travel hockey for Little Caesars Club, which was one of the best clubs in the world, and we won the Quebec tournament and won state championships and went to national championships. And hockey was my life, and that's basically all I did. I played soccer and baseball kind of on the side, but I really didn't get into lacrosse until I was in 6th grade, and my 6th grade science teacher was the head lacrosse coach at Brother Rice. You know, this is back in the mid-'80s, and to put it in context, I think at that time there was only 7 high school teams in the whole state of Michigan. You know, now there's close to 300. So lacrosse was like obscure, and my science teacher would play VHS tapes, which most kids may not even know what that is, of lacrosse games, and he'd play them during study hall, and he'd watch for the boys that weren't doing their work and were watching the games. And then after study hall, he'd go, "Did you like that?" And he'd go, "Yeah, what is that?" He goes, "That's called lacrosse. I can teach you how to play. You got to go home and ask your parents for $25, and I'll sell you the stick." And I remember asking my dad, and he goes, "What is it? What's lacrosse?" They'd never heard of it. I said, "Okay, here's the money." I bring it home. They're like, "What the heck do you do with it?" And my dad used to play catch with me in the front yard with his baseball glove, because no one had really seen a lacrosse stick. They weren't available in stores at the time. And I just played in this intramural league, and I liked it. I mean, it was fast. It had a lot of running, and just gravitated towards it. And for me, my gift that kind of carried me through my lacrosse career is I could run really fast. Like, I was a really, really fast runner. And as a defenseman, right, if nobody can run faster than you, it's kind of hard to get beat unless you make a bad, you make a mistake. But it was, I didn't really discover that. So in middle school, it was just for fun. It was kind of a side thing when I for playing hockey. And then when I got to high school, I got really burned out on hockey because I was playing all year round and wasn't having much fun just because, if you play travel hockey in high school, you never go to a dance, you never go to a football game, you never go to a party. You're literally playing every weekend. So I switched from playing travel hockey to play for my high school at Brother Rice. And then I started getting into lacrosse, and my sophomore year I made the varsity team. And then all of a sudden I said, I think I can be good at this. And, by the time I was a junior, I started getting actively recruited. And it was back then, lacrosse camps were where kids would get recruited, and there was a new lacrosse camp called Top 205. It was the very first year.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so I went to it, and I was the only kid from Michigan. And, growing up in Michigan, you didn't have, like, all the cool stuff, like the mesh shorts and all the kind of, I would say, form that, I think I used to practice with, like, cut off army pants. I'd, like, cut off camouflage. Or I'd wear, like, a T-shirt with the sleeves cut off. And they were going, like, who is this dirtbag guy? And so all these kids were teasing me. And, I was a big guy, I was a strong, fast guy, and then I was just pissed. I said, if these guys are going to make fun of me, then I'm going to kill them. So every time we went out there, whether it was a drill or a scrimmage, I was just chasing guys all over the field and whacking on them and knocking them down. And I didn't know about playing position and kind of dropping in. So basically, whoever had the ball, I would just chase them all over the field and take the ball away from him. And all these coaches were watching, like, who the hell is this guy? And they all started coming up to me. And at the time, that was when Bill Tierney had just started at Princeton, and I think Tony Seaman was at Penn. Anyways, the schools I got recruited by, I was recruited by Princeton, Brown, Penn, Hopkins, and North Carolina.
Wow.
And it was crazy because that at the time the school that I was really interested was Brown, and that was just because I had the most fun on my recruiting trip. It was lots of craziness. But then my dad
lots of craziness.
Then my dad goes, I'm not sending you to some hippie school where they give you pass fail, and I'm not paying for all that. And he's like, you got to pick something else. So anyways, then the next school I was really interested was North Carolina, and Coach T had already recruited me. It was a funny story actually, because he saw me play at 205, but he never came out and saw me play lacrosse. My junior, the fall of my senior year, he came to one of my hockey games. And so we were playing our biggest rival, and he was sitting, there's about 750 people, 1,000 people in the rink, and he was sitting right on the glass with my parents, and we were winning, by a couple goals, and there was a minute left, and I was out at the end of the game, and I saw this guy skating with the puck right by him, so I go, I'm going to skate cross ice and hit this guy as hard as I can. Try to knock him out right in front of Coach T. show him I'm a badass. So I skate across the ice, blow this guy out. He's laying on the ground, and then all of a sudden, their bench clears out.
Oh, no.
And then our bench clears out, and then someone grabs me, and I'm wailing on some guy. My mom's crying in the stand. My dad's pounding on the glass, like, go, get him. And then Coach T has this, like, look of amazement on his face. Yeah, and then afterwards, I got decapitated and, kicked off the team for a week and all this stuff. And then, our AD was all pissed off at me for doing that. And he didn't realize Coach T was my lacrosse coach. He thought he was a hockey coach. He goes, "You realize you just lost your hockey scholarship to Princeton, and your hockey coach was there. You're an idiot." And I said, "He's not my hockey coach. He's my lacrosse coach." And I think he was impressed. And after the game, he goes, "Wow, Dave," he's like, that was some game. He goes, "We need guys like you at Princeton." And so it was, Princeton wasn't my top choice, and I really wanted to go to North Carolina. And he when he found out I was going on my recruiting trip, he called me a week before, and he said, "Look, it's February. We'll get right through the admissions process. If I can get you in, will you send your plane ticket back to North Carolina?" He goes, "I don't want you to go on that recruiting trip."
Wow.
And I said, "I guess, if you can get me in." And he did it, and I sent the ticket back. And I'll never forget this. The coach at the time for North Carolina said, when I called him and told him I'll send my ticket back, he said, some kids choose an education in lacrosse, and some kids choose to play on a good lacrosse team. And he goes, I wish you the best of luck in your education. and which was really fun about that is that was the team we beat in my junior year in the semis to eventually win the national championship.
So
that
sick.
That was cool. And then, going to Princeton, the team was terrible. I mean, it's Princeton when I showed up, had a 25-year losing record.
Wow.
They were a joke. I didn't realize that because Coach T was such a good recruiter, such a positive guy. When he recruited us, he said, "I guarantee you're going to win a national championship." I go, "Win a national championship? We don't even have a winning record." I think we should start there. And what happened was he had all these young guys. I was in his second recruiting class. All these young guys, his sophomores and freshmen were guys he recruited. The juniors and seniors were from the old school, and those guys just, didn't have the belief. They didn't think the team was ever going to be any good. They kind of had that losing mentality. And T just did an awesome job of getting everyone to believe. That's the hardest part in trying to do anything big is getting the group to believe it's possible. Because once you believe it's possible, that's when great things are going to happen. But for me, it was hard because coming from Michigan where there's only 7 teams and the coaching wasn't the same as it was in the East Coast. I didn't even know how to run the drills. I didn't even understand the drills because I didn't understand all the terms they were using. So I'd always go in the back of the line, try to figure it out. So the fall of my freshman year, I was only at the school for probably 90 days. I wanted to leave. I was by far the worst kid on the team. I had no idea what was going on. I was a much better hockey player in my mind than I was a lacrosse player. And so it was probably midway through fall ball, I just stopped showing up.
Wow.
Because I didn't really have the balls to tell Coach T I didn't want to play. So I figured if I just stopped showing up, that it would take care of itself. And at the same time, I had approached the hockey coach and said I wanted to switch sports and play hockey. And they were great, like, "Oh yeah, we know about you. We'd love to have you on the team. You missed a lot in August, so you're gonna have to start out on the JV team. But we'd love to have you in the program." So I basically went like a week without showing up to lacrosse practice. And then he called me in the office and he said, "What's going on? You haven't been showing up." And I said, "Well, I decided I suck at lacrosse and I want to be a hockey player." And then he gets up and he closes the door. He goes, "You decided that?" I won't get into all the yelling and screaming. But I can tell you he was very upset about my decision, and telling me that I can't just give up and I can't just quit and I can't just play hockey. And So then he convinced me to come back on the team. And, for my freshman year, it was hard. I was a defenseman. I was kind of one of those guys who got put out at the end of the game when you were winning by a bunch. Never really saw much playing time. And, that kind of defined my freshman year. The guys from the heavily recruited guys that were the big name guys were the ones that got all the attention. And then the cool part about that is we had a winning season my freshman year. The worst loss I ever had in my sports career, playing any sport, whether it was youth t-ball or soccer or you name it, was Hopkins my freshman year. They beat us 20-8 in their home opener.
Wow.
I'd never gotten beaten that badly in any sport in my life. We're walking around Baltimore and everybody's screaming out the window at us, telling us we suck and we're a bunch of bums and we're a bunch of Ivy League. I mean, it was embarrassing. And I didn't realize what a doormat team it was. But then that year we ended up beating Hopkins in the first round of the NCAA playoffs.
Wow.
And it was the first time Princeton had made it to the NCAA playoffs, I think, ever. And we beat Hopkins, and that was, at that time, that was when every graduating class for Hopkins for like 100 years had won a national championship. So they had never lost in the first round of the national championship. The NCAA finals ever.
Huh.
And so that was a big deal. And then where it really changed for me was that summer. You have the exit interview with the coach, and he says, we got big things planned for you. You got to work hard. They hand you the training regimen and all that stuff. And he goes, I want to start you next year. And I go, you're going to start me? I go, I've never even played. Like, how can I start? He goes, well, that's our plan. So you got to work for it. But, meanwhile, I didn't realize that's what they tell everybody.
Right.
I thought he was just saying that to me. So I'm working hard, running hard, training hard. And I come back, had a good fall ball. He goes, look, you've done a great job. And he said, I'm going to start you. And I said, you're going to start me? And our opening game was always against Hopkins. He goes, yeah. And I was a sophomore. I'd never even played a full game. And he goes, we're going to start you. You're going to cover Matt Panetta, who's a senior, who's the leading scorer at Hopkins. Guy averages like 7 or 8 points a game. He goes, that's who you're going to cover. I go, I'm going to cover that guy? I said, I don't even ever covered anyone like that. Killed me, because for months, I was haunted by the feeling of having to go out in the field and play against a guy like that. So I was running and lifting and doing all the things I needed to do. And by the time it got to the game day, I was petrified, because at that time, Homewood would seat, 10,000 people. And Princeton was always like the whipping boy game they had. And then when we'd go out there, they would announce the opposing team. And then when they say your name and say, so-and-so from, Rochester, New York, the whole crowd would go, who's he? And they'd hold up a newspaper. So you're sitting there in the tunnel waiting, and then they go, David Morrow from Detroit, Michigan. And instead of saying, like, who's he? They all started laughing. And then I ran out on the field, and everybody, and they're all like, who's this guy? And then when we match up, the guy who I was covering, they're like, who the hell is this guy? He's not on the scouting report. I've never heard of this guy. And I was petrified, right? So anyways, I ended up playing a great game. I don't know, the guy had like 1 or 2 points, or maybe he had 1 assist, but it was the lowest points that he had ever had, and we ended up beating Hopkins. So all of a sudden, all these reporters run up to me and they're going, oh, what was it like to play? Who are you? Michigan, and all this stuff. And it was, I built that moment up in my mind for so many months that I had such a bigger expectation, is that when they said, what was it like? And I was like, well, he wasn't as good as I thought he was.
Oh, that's such a great line.
but I meant it, because I had built this guy up in my mind to be Superman.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously he was a great player, but it was just, for me, I never thought I could do that, right? And that was when the light switched for me, because in my opinion, where people shift from good to great is when you build the self-confidence. And up until that point, I really didn't have any self-confidence when it came to playing lacrosse. And then I'm like, all of a sudden, as a sophomore, I basically stopped one of the best players in the country. I think I could be pretty good at that. And so by that time, the goal I had set for myself is I just want to continue to be a starter by the time I'm a senior. And what happened was my job basically became stopping the other team's best attackman. And so every game, he would put me on the other team's best attackman, and I'd hold them to no points or 1 point. And, all of a sudden I became, an All-American my sophomore year. And, then by my junior year, it just kind of took off. And it was, shocking. I mean, I never thought in a million years it would, my career would have evolved the way it did. But, the underlying thing that I had going for me is I tell people all the time, I really wasn't a great lacrosse player. I was just really tough, could run really fast. And when you're a defenseman, fast makes a big difference. And so, it was my junior year. We ended up winning the national championship. We beat Carolina in the semifinals. What was cool about that for me is the semifinals was the first time I'd ever used a titanium shaft in a game, and then I ended up scoring 2 goals that game.
Well, where did the titanium shaft come from? Why don't you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was just out of utility. It was basically, I was what people would consider a very physical defenseman. I would beat on people, and I would always bend my stick, and so we needed something that was stronger. At the time it was just soft aluminum and wood, and as using a soft aluminum shaft, it would always be bending when you're wailing on guys. So my father had a small business where we made hose and tube assemblies, and my summer job for years is I always worked in a machine shop. So we were working on some different projects where we had some titanium in the facility, and then my dad saw me bending shafts and coming on and off the field, and we came up with the idea of how do we make something that's going to be more durable, that's not going to bend, and lighter. And then we settled on titanium, and the first samples we made were going into the quarterfinals. We played Maryland, and so the quarterfinals, the semifinals, and the finals, more than half the guys on our team were using the titanium handle.
Oh, wow.
And it was it kind of sold itself because it was half the weight, 5 times the strength. I mean, literally the only reason you wouldn't have bought a titanium handle at the time was if you just couldn't afford it, because a normal handle was like $10, and a titanium handle was like $100. So it was a big jump, from a financial standpoint at the time, but the performance just spoke for itself.
Couldn't agree more. I used a Titan Pro all through high school and college. I was between the Titan Pro and the Titan Classic. They were definitely my go-tos.
Yeah, and if you take like this defenseman from Michigan and then winning the national championship, using the titanium handle, and some of the coaches were complaining about it because they said it gave us an unfair advantage. This is pre-internet. Internet didn't exist, right? Everything at that point was just all so word of mouth.
Yeah.
But the product was so popular and performed so well that just people talked about it. So in June of '92, which was right after the national championship, right after my junior year, I decided to start a company. My dad gave me a small loan to get it started, and we chose the name Warrior because that's where I really developed my love for the game. Was in high school. The name of my high school is called the Brother Rice Warriors.
Wow.
Wow.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's a cool story.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
And to fast forward now to the 2000s, like you were talking about soccer before, I'm a big soccer fan. How cool is it to see your uniforms, Warrior uniforms, on the field in an English Premier League game? Last year they did a report from Forbes, and they named the top world soccer teams. And Liverpool is a top 5 soccer team in the world, and your gear that you started while you were in college is being trotted out in the field, and one of the best teams in Europe. That has to be just the most ridiculous, wild feeling.
Yeah, it was cool. I mean, we started the soccer business in 2011, and that was an extraordinary thing for me because I really wasn't a soccer fan. To be honest, didn't even really like the sport. but Jim Davis challenged me to do it, and they really wanted it, from a strategic standpoint at New Balance. So I agreed to take it on, and through the process became a lover of soccer. Like, I absolutely love global soccer now. I guess I hate to say it, but it's my favorite sport to watch. Like, I watch it every single weekend and fly all over the world and go to matches now. I learned a lot about the game, have watched it played all over the world, and
wow.
I mean, I even got when we were signing up players, I got invited to Cristiano Ronaldo's house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I sat in his living room with his son and with his agent and with a guy who I work with, and we had a discussion about him potentially becoming a Warrior athlete at one time.
That's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, and that was in his living room, and then he was surrounded by all of his trophies, his Ballon d'Ors and all the amazing things he's done. And that's a guy who I would say, the public doesn't really know him. People make a lot of judgments about him, but he's a wonderful guy, like a super nice, sweet, just a very, very nice professional guy. Like, he was a pleasure to hang out with and spend time with. And obviously, arguably one of the most popular athletes on the planet Earth. But I mean, he's also a really cool guy. So, but through that process, we bid on the Man United deal and had, met with Sir Alex Ferguson, and it goes on and on. There's a lot of football stories, soccer stories that I just really love. And I even though now we've transitioned the soccer business over to New Balance, just for strategic marketing reasons.
Yeah.
I still love the sport, still love to watch it, and still travel around with my friends to go to matches. I try to make at least two a year.
That's so awesome. I'm a Vincent Kompany guy. You guys had Vinny for a little bit there. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Is he really?
He's Belgian. He speaks like 6 languages. He's a super intelligent guy. He's got his own marketing company, has ownership interests in other professional teams in Belgium. Like,
wow.
He's a cool dude.
That's awesome. You have a Man City guy, but I love Liverpool. Brooksy was, obviously for those of you guys that don't know, Brooksy's a Warrior athlete. But so, anyways, yeah, Brooks got into Liverpool, and I hate to love Liverpool, but they're definitely my second favorite team. And every time you watch a game and they start singing, "You'll Never Walk Alone," it's like you can't not get chills.
Yeah, and if you've never been there, like if you pick it up through the TV, but if you've been there, that's like, it's nothing I've ever been. I mean, I've been to Stanley Cup, Super Bowls, NBA championships, you name it. I've seen a lot of sports events.
Yeah.
Nothing, in my opinion, is like a super passionate football match. And in my opinion, nothing is like Anfield. I've never been to any other place like Anfield.
Awesome.
I need to go. We were watching videos last year. It's so good. And once they get back in the Champions League, it's like, look out. It's going to be a ticket that's going to be about $5,000.
Plus, it's a crazy town. Like, crazy fun. Like, Liverpool's definitely, it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but they're awesome people, and they're super nice. And I mean, I don't know. I miss it, to be honest. I love doing it.
Now, to go back to how you said your junior year at Princeton, you and your father started the company Warrior Lacrosse. And most people can't say that they went into the business with their father and then make an I mean, you guys, I mean, Warriors by far the best lacrosse brand, and they're all over hockey and now soccer. What was your vision with you and your father when you first started the company?
I mean, it's just day by day. I was 20 years old, so I wasn't like thinking I'm going to take over the world and start a huge business. I mean, it's just saying I just want to make it work. And for me, at that point, it was more from a competitive athletics standpoint. I just wanted to be successful at whatever I did. So, at the time, it was just, how do we build a successful small business and take on. There were really only two brands at the time. It was Brine and STX.
Right.
And they had been in business for a long, long time. The day-by-day thing, and it really didn't start out as a business. It was more just people wanted it, so we're going to make them for them. But, that summer, every single college team in the country asked for them. And we used to sell them direct. We would sell them direct and just take people's credit card information.
Wow. What? So you're playing in college as the National Player of the Year, selling other team sticks.
Yeah, well, I had a friend who was, he had graduated from Notre Dame a year early.
Uh-huh.
One of my good buddies from high school. And so he was basically managing the day-to-day stuff. And then I was working more on the product development.
That's incredible.
Because they'd be sending shafts, and then I'd be taking them to practice, and then giving feedback, and then we'd be improving on them. But, again, this is pre-email.
Right.
Everything was done over a phone and just sending samples back and forth.
Wow.
But it was funny, I graduated June of '93, and I come back to this little office. My buddy was there, and I literally, I never took any business classes or anything. I had no idea what I was doing. And I went in my dad's office. I said, it's my first day here in the office. What should I do? And he looks at me. He screamed at me. He goes, I paid all this goddamn money to send you to Princeton, and you're coming into my office saying, what the hell should I do? He's like, go figure it out. That was my business 101 lesson. So I kind of felt stupid, and I went back in the little office I had, and I'd have work boots on, and I'd literally cut the titanium, polish it, wrap it up, send it out. And all my friends that I played with, lots of Princeton guys go to be bankers in New York, and they're making a lot of money at an early age, and I wasn't making any money, and I had this tiny little business, and they teased me all the time and give me about it. It would frustrate me a lot because I'm going, why am I doing this? What's this going to work? What's this going to turn into? Should I be doing something different? Because it took us about 5 years to break $1 million in sales. But what really pushed me over the top is my college roommate that I knew at Princeton was my lead investor. My other investor was, at the time, my girlfriend, who's now my wife. She had made an investment in the business. And so, she was an investor. She was also my business partner, so she would be running the office while I was out selling and designing and developing everything. And then my roommate made a sizable investment in the business. And his father was the founder of HCA, which is one of the largest healthcare companies in the country. It's a $40 billion healthcare company. his dad was the founder. So Billy Frist was what I would say, angel investor that really gave me the capital to grow the business. And, since he was a friend, he took a small share of the business. And, it was a flyer, right? Nobody ever thought it would work. But what we started doing is I started hiring all the guys I played with. So, Warriors always had a heritage of being involved with the best players. At the time, Mark Millen was the best offensive player, arguably one of the best offensive players in the world. He was on our team. Jesse Hubbard was on our team. We had all kinds of amazing young lacrosse minds that were selling and helping design product. And so, the perspective we've always had has been from, the best players. I mean, I was fortunate enough to play the game at the highest level. So, playing on the USA team for whatever it was, 94 through 98, you know everybody. You either play with them or you play against them.
Right.
So, my line mates in 1994 were guys like Joe Bresci and Dave Petramala.
Get out of here.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Joe Bresci and I played together in 94 and 98. And Brian Volker.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like all these guys, then move on to become great coaches and do all these other things. But those are all the guys that we had access to. So, the big breakout thing for Warrior was the 98 World Championships. And I made the team. But that was really hard because we sponsored the team. And at the time, we didn't have the money to sponsor the team. So I had gotten all these credit cards. This is when back in the 90s, you get these solicitations for credit cards all the time. And then I falsified my income on the credit cards.
Huh.
So I was probably making 18 grand at the time. And I said I made like 300 grand. So they were giving me all kinds of credit.
Yeah.
So I used all the credit cards to basically pay for the sponsorship fee for the U.S. team. But when we did the U.S. team, we didn't have all the equipment.
Oh, geez.
So I had to fly to Asia and design everything. So I had to design the gloves, the shoulder pads, arm pads. At the time, Laxworld used to make their own helmets, so we used them for our helmet.
Huh.
And then I had to, but all the additional stuff we didn't make.
Wow.
I was flying back and forth to China like once a month.
That's incredible.
Doing all that work, and and I knew nothing about how to source in Asia. I mean, I literally read the Nike book called Just Do It.
Okay.
And I was reading that on the plane on my first trip to Asia.
On your way.
Yeah, and then it talked about how Phil Knight basically did the same thing, where he just learned it as he was doing it. And I go, well, if he can learn it, I can learn it. Different business, but I literally just showed up at a trading company in Taiwan, and then they took me into China, and then I went to the Philippines and traveled all over Asia building a sourcing network.
That's incredible.
And that was why I had to eventually stop playing, because I loved the game. I loved playing, but the 98 World Championships was like the first time that I didn't feel like I was playing at my peak physical ability.
Right.
And I was young. I was only 27 at the time, and that was just because I was doing so much traveling. Because I'd have to help sell the stuff. I was constantly going back and forth to Asia, and I had just gotten married in December of '97. So for like the first 9 months of being newly married, I was never home one weekend.
Wow.
Because every weekend I was either playing lacrosse, right, training for the U.S. team, or I was traveling, or I was out somewhere selling. And I said, something's got to give. So I stopped playing, and then basically focused all my attention on Warrior. And then, we won the 98 World Championships in double overtime at Homewood Field in front of a big crowd on national TV. And everyone was using Warrior, and that's when it really just exploded. Starting in the the late 90s, we went through a phase for over 10 years where we literally couldn't make it fast enough. Whatever we made, we could sell it as fast as we could make it.
Wow.
That's be a good feeling.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then in the middle of that is when I sold the business to New Balance. I sold the business in 2004.
And back right after the World Championships, not too long after that is when Jake came knocking on your door with I read your book, Take a Shot. It's awesome if anyone hasn't seen it yet.
So Jake called me the spring of 1998.
There you go.
And so the first time I went out to meet him, and then I said, when we talked, he had this idea of starting a pro lacrosse league. And I said, yeah, man, let's do it. And he goes, but I don't have any money. And he goes, no, I'll find the money and we'll take care of all that. But he goes, you got to get the players on board. I go, that's easy. They're all my friends. Even the guys I played against on Team Canada, those guys I was still friendly with them. We all knew each other playing football and stuff. So
I like the book. In the book you guys are talking about, it's like, Mark Millen, he's just very by the book, and he's definitely in. Casey Powell, I think he's in. He's kind of a little hard to get a hold of. He's probably a little too free-spirited, but he should be in. It just can't take that long.
Well, yeah, and all those guys worked with me at some point.
Right.
Mark worked at Warrior. Casey worked at Warrior. So it was all intertwined, between whether work and lacrosse. And what sold Jake and our partner Tim Robertson is Jake and Tim came to that '98 World Championship. So they came to the game. So they were sitting in the stands with my wife and my parents and her parents. So they watched the whole thing. So they saw, you guys, I don't remember the exact score, but, know enough about lacrosse that having a 10-goal or 9-goal lead going into the fourth quarter is pretty much, it's in the bag, right?
Right.
We blew a 9-goal lead and put it into overtime. And so it was crazy.
That's smart marketing. Smart marketing.
Yeah, they saw the whole thing, and then, I'm staying up all night with my buddies partying because we won. And then I had breakfast with them, with Jake and Tim at like 9 in the morning. I hadn't slept a wink. I was out all night. And then they're sitting there going, well, we want to do this. We want to put the money in. Can you get the players? I said, yeah, as long as you promise me that everyone's going to get paid, because these are my friends.
Yeah.
I can't go to these guys and say this is legit. You guys stiff them like that. That's not going to work. These guys are all my buddies. We play together and have fun together. And he said, no, you got to work. These guys will always get paid, and that's not going to happen. And so then I talked to everybody and got them all on board. And then we had this summer showcase. And it was hard for me to watch that, to be honest, because I really would have loved to have played at the beginning, but I just didn't have the time. Like living in Michigan and how quickly Warrior was growing, and all the teams were on the East Coast, and all the practices were there. I wouldn't have been able to pull it off. But that was something that I wish I played for a couple of years. But it's still awesome being able to say as one of the guys that helped get it started, because I think MLO's now in its 17th season.
It's incredible. Yeah. There's a lot of guys that do little things, or they create one product, or they have a lasting impact with their play. But you've left an impact in so many different facets, between the league, between Warrior, between your products, between your play, being all world and NCAA Player of the Year and gold medals. I mean, you have to be one of the, if not the main guy behind this driving force of the last 15, 20 years of lacrosse. I mean, it's really, really cool to hear your story and kind of get a better grasp. It's almost like Forrest Gump. It's like you kind of have done everything, and you've been touched in every advance in the game. It's pretty neat.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And, you don't think about it at the time, but it kind of, it builds over time. And, I've had a lot of success in the sport, not only from a business standpoint, but playing personally. I mean, I've made great friends. I've had great times, some of the best memories of my life. And the sport changed me personally. I mean, the self-confidence that I gained as a player is the same self-confidence that I took to business. And I got to a point where I never thought I could be a starter. I'm a starter. I never thought I could be an All-American. I never thought I'd be Player of the Year. And it's like, well, then what else could I do? And then, the thing that I learned along the way is you just have to dream big. And it's hard to accomplish big things, but if you don't dream it's even possible, it'll never happen. And, you know, the two guys that are really big influences on my life for that were Jake. You know, Jake was a guy from a business standpoint who really pushed me to think big and dream big. And then the guy who took that to the next level was Jim Davis, you know, who's the owner of New Balance. And so, you know, when I look at all the things that I've gotten from lacrosse, I really felt we had to give something back. And, you know, I know there's a lot of controversy around the warp, and it's things that, you know, people are afraid of change, right? When Warrior first came on the scene, everybody laughed and said it was stupid and it's never going to work and you're never going to beat these two brands. When MLL first came on the scene, everybody laughed and said it was stupid and you guys don't know what you're doing. And, you know, 17 years later, it's still here. And so, you know, seeing the way everybody's reacting to something new like the warp, I just laugh now because I've been through this so many times. I mean, that's when I know we're on to something big, is when, you know, these early stage, you know, haters come in and just hate for no reason. And to my perspective, the gift that I can give back, that New Balance can give back, is we can give the game to everybody. And I believe in my heart of hearts, whether it's the Warp Mini Stick, the Junior Warp, the Warp Next, any of the Warp Pro product, with all the different prices, with all the different selection that we're going to offer, you know, and, you know, we're very hopeful that we are able to do the Warp in the women's. We've made some awesome prototypes, and we're working closely with U.S. Lacrosse on it, and they've been really great to work with. That the gift that we can give is the gift of the game. Is I just want more people to play. You know, the sport changed my life, and I'd love to be partly responsible for exposing more kids to it. You know, it's such a wonderful game that everybody loves so much. I don't think 500,000 people is enough.
No.
You know, I think I'd love in my lifetime to see 10 million kids playing lacrosse. But to get there, you know, we've got to make the sport easier to play, more accessible to play, and I think standardizing the stick is the way to do it. I mean, it's the foundation that's going to let any kid from anywhere, I don't care what socioeconomic background, I don't care where you live in the United States, if you have physical ability, you can learn the fundamentals, that we will be able to promise you that you'll be able to be successful and enjoy the sport and have fun with it no matter what level you play at. Whether you aspire to play at the level of be a U.S. team player, or whether you just want to be a rec league player, or if you're an adult and you just pick it up later in life, like a lot of guys do with hockey and other sports, just for fun, that you can enjoy it. And I think what we're offering, you know, it's hard for people to envision because they don't see what I see. They don't see all the product behind the scenes that's coming out. But they'll see it in the next 6 months. I think their jaw's going to drop. And we don't need to hype anything. All they need to do is try it.
I've tried it. I love it.
Absolutely.
I'm a huge believer. Yeah.
Another thing is you talk about changing the game, not just the warp alone, but something that I was able to use last year, and now that the product is out, is that BOA technology, which is that dial fit system to allow yourself to quickly lock in your elbow pads. And I just tried I'm using the chest pads now, the shoulder pads, sorry, and the gloves. I mean, from a player standpoint, you know, talking about changing the game, I think that is one of the biggest things in the equipment side of stuff as the biggest game changer, because you always have this Velcro that keeps coming off, or your shoulder pads or your elbow pads slide down and your glide slide off. Right. But with this BOA dial fit, it is unbelievable how it always stays in that one area that you want it to be, and it's easily quick release. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, BOA is a great technology. They have, I mean, I don't remember the latest numbers, but I think they sell like 35 million of those dials a year now. and it's used on golf shoes and hiking boots and fly fishing boots and all. There's lots and lots of applications for it, and we're constantly involved in continuous improvement across all of our product, whether it's heads, equipment, handles, you name it. And it was just like you said. I mean, the concept of Velcro and elastic, I mean, that's only been used in pads for about 50 years, I don't remember when Velcro was invented, but I mean, it's like, guys, we got to come up with something new. There's a very similar conversation to like warp. What else is out there? And the idea came forward to collaborate with BOA, and they're actually based out in Colorado. They're a very progressive company, and we work closely with them to develop a solution for all the different pieces of equipment. And I think the collaboration between our team and their team was awesome, and I'm really, really pleased with the way the product came out. And like you said, I mean, the product speaks for itself. I mean, you just have to try it. You try it, you'll see what we're talking about.
It's the truth. It's honestly the truth.
There's a reason why all the pros use it. Yeah.
I have not given a kid a warp, or I've not given a kid trying out those elbow pads without them saying, "Where do I get these?" Or "Can I have these, please?" I mean, without a doubt, these people are having a full effect, and it's a good thing because, like you say, you are help growing the game in the right way, and you're also making the game better, more advanced, but also allowing the player to be a customizable person to find the right stick in the warp and not have to worry about pulling strings or this or that, and not worrying about having that headache right before a game, seeing that it's pouring down rain and you got to pull a couple strings. They just grab their stick and they know it's going to be automatic every time, no matter what.
Yeah, and the amount of options the players are going to have between the different warp pocket options combined with the heads. I mean, you're going to see, our best-selling heads are the Evolution, the Burn, and the Reg Max, the Regulator Max. Those are all warped. Like we've got multiple warp pockets for all of those heads that are going to be coming out. I mean, the launch on May 23rd is the Evo Warp Pro. That was a collaboration with Rob Pennell, and Rob was awesome. I mean, he saw it. He was a brine athlete, which is a brand that we own. But when he saw the warp, he goes, I think this is the biggest innovation, since the plastic head. He goes, I want to be involved with this. What's it going to take for me to get involved? We're like, well, all you got to do is tell us you want to be involved, and we'll figure out a way to get you involved. And he's been unbelievable. He's been engaged in the process, engaged in all the product design, the testing, and the cool part about it is, people have been seeing Rob playing with this new stick. There's a lot of special things in that stick that Rob has designed, but any kid's going to be able to get their hands on that.
Right.
And play with it and play well with it. So, we've got a collaboration now with Paul Rabel. I mean, Paul actually just showed his first, glimpse of it. I think it was yesterday or a couple days ago on Instagram. He took a picture of it and posted what he's working on. But what's fun for me now is our pro athletes are engaged. I mean, guys are using it. Guys are playing with it. That's been going on. We've got between MLL and NLL about 20 guys that have, what I would say, have been active warp users. But that number is going to skyrocket now because the number of inquiries we're getting are dozens and dozens and dozens of guys. The issue now is literally just picking the right one, because this stick that Rob's using is brand new. I mean, Rob's literally started using it 2 weeks ago.
Huh. Right out of the gate, it's working. Yeah.
I mean, the stick that he used in his very first game, he took out of his trunk 2 hours before the game. He hadn't even touched it yet. We had just shipped it to him, and he got 3 goals and 2 assists in his very first game.
It's not bad. The only fear I have though is that I currently use the most obnoxious. Brooksy can attest to it.
Oh, it's so
the most obnoxious lime green or whatever you call it, Rabel head with a Crypto Pro like neon yellow stick. They call it my highlighter.
Yeah.
I love it,
Yeah.
but now I'm gonna have to change.
He's changed
I'm gonna have to go
sure.
warp. I love the warp. I'm gonna have to make a move, and it's not gonna be as obnoxious.
The new one, well, the fun part is we're just getting started there too. I mean, there's different regulations that limit what we can do, inside the pocket from a color standpoint.
Right.
However, at youth and other areas, but if you've seen any kind of knitted footwear.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you see.
The fly knit, right? Like that kind of stuff?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So have you seen all the gradiated patterns and all the different, we can do all that inside the pocket.
That's sick.
We haven't even started with that yet.
Wow.
Wow.
It's the tip of the iceberg, and the thing that three-dimensional knitting allows, which traditional knitting, which they make a regular mesh pocket, we can use lots of different yarns.
Huh.
So we can the sidewall yarn is different than the yarn on the side. That's different in the center of the pocket. So we can use yarns in certain areas to make it softer. We can use yarns in certain areas to make it stiffer. We can use yarns in certain areas to do lots and lots of different things. And that's before we add any color.
You've got me jacked up. I can't wait. Between you guys, we just had Casey on in last week's episode, and Casey was telling us all about his speed lacrosse. I feel like you could legitimately go up to a 6th grade class or 4th grade class, hand them a warp, say these are the fundamentals, go play speed lacrosse, and it's softball. They can play on the sand or whatever it may be, and every single kid could theoretically just go play lacrosse. And I think you're saying from 500,000 to 10 million. I think that's a doable thing if kids don't get deterred from horrible equipment.
Yeah, so we're involved with Casey's speed lacrosse effort. I think it's awesome. I love that he's come up with a creative new way to engage kids in the sport, and it's another way we can use the warp technology. But the thickness, the reason a field stick has which I'd say a much heavier duty warp pocket is because guys are passing the ball at 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, shooting the ball 100 miles an hour. So there's a certain amount of durability and that needs to be designed into the pocket as well. But a speed lacrosse where you're using a really lightweight ball, the warp pocket that we're designing for a speed stick is totally different.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's super, super lightweight. Like, you wouldn't be able to use it with a field ball. If you used a field ball with it, you'd destroy it. Mm-hmm. But for a very lightweight ball, it works wonderfully.
That's
so we
exciting.
can customize the thickness of the yarn. We can customize the size of the diamonds. So the ball that we're going to be, the pocket that we're making for his speed stick is going to be specifically designed for a very lightweight ball.
Oh, it's so awesome. I'm excited. I can't wait for your new gear to come out. I'm going to be like checking the Warrior website just on refresh in the morning. So
yeah, it's really fun now because the amount of seeing the guys, the tradition of the company, right, is always being associated with elite athletes. I was lucky enough to play with the best players in the world. I don't play anymore. However, we've been able to continue that tradition with, an amazing group of athletes that we can collaborate with. And, you name the position, they're the best of the best. And that's what makes it fun for me, is that we still get to work, with not only the best players, but also, I think, the best guys.
Changing the game.
Yeah.
So the last question we always ask everybody, we have this random word generator, and once it hits, we get an adjective and a noun, and you have to name a celebrity, a friend, a coach, whoever it may be. It doesn't have to be lacrosse related, but obviously somebody that people would know. You have to give us first person that comes to mind. All right, let me turn on our word generator. All right, here you go. You get aggressive donut.
So somebody who's an aggressive donut?
Yeah.
Wow. The first person that comes to mind, it's bizarre, but the first person that came to my mind, you said aggressive donut, was Hulk Hogan.
That's a great answer. That's a great answer.
I mean, when I was a kid, the Hulk Hogan was really cool, but I'm going like, why did I just think of Hulk Hogan?
Some of the answers have been great. We had Coach Tierney was on, and he got rude ballerina, and he goes, "Oh, coddle." For rude ballerina. Oh, we were dying. I actually texted him this morning telling him, I said, we were having you on. I said, you have any good stories that I could ask Dave to tell? And he goes, I don't think you'll have a problem. You'll have a blast with Dave. He has plenty of stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we didn't get into the depths of the Coach T stories, but there's a lot of them. I mean, he's an extraordinary man, and he shaped my playing career and my personal career. And, I wouldn't be where I am today without him. That's for sure.
He was incredible to listen to. His story is just, I mean, talk about the Forrest Gump between you and him. I mean, his coaching side of things, changing programs, and you on the playing side of things and the manufacturing. I mean, the two of you guys are incredible. We should get you guys in a room together. That would be an incredible episode. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, I learned so much, and I feel like you kind of reinvigorated my excitement for lacrosse. I have no idea what's around the corner, what you guys are cooking up.
I appreciate that, guys. I mean, happy to help and happy to be a part of it and keep up the good work, keep having fun.
Thanks again to Dave for coming on. Wow, I'll tell you what, the early 90s in Princeton were quite an incredible time producing those two. Between Bill Tierney and Dave Morrow, those guys have completely changed the face of the game. Bill Tierney pushing the game out west and winning national championships, and then you have Dave Morrow from the Midwest, back in the Midwest, but spent a lot of time in the East Coast really developing the game in the hotbeds by changing the technology, and from the titanium shaft to the new warp head. The two of those guys are really, really pushing the boundary of the sport, and it's incredible to hear their stories and to kind of understand what makes them tick. Awesome to hear it in his words. So, guys, later this week we actually have a special episode coming up with a guest who we are not going to release just yet, but wait till you hear who it is. Stay tuned to our social media account. We're going to be breaking down the NCAA tournament, going through the whole bracket with a very special guest, somebody that everybody knows, and I'm sure he's going to drop some knowledge bombs on us. So stay tuned for that. It'll be out probably Friday. That's the game plan. So check it out Friday morning. And with no further ado, let's dive into Snapple Facts. I got one right here. Let's see what we got. Penguins have an organ above their eyes that converts seawater to fresh water. Let's do one more. A single coffee tree produces only 1 pound of coffee beans per year. I kind of feel bad about that. I drink way too much coffee. Okay, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Hit us with some follows on social media. Begataway Podcast on Instagram, Begataway Pod on Twitter, begatawaypodcast@gmail.com if you want to send us an email. We'll see you guys later this week. Feel free to reach out with any questions you may have or guest suggestions, and we will talk to you later. So it's that time of year, guys. Whether you're done with college and have to buy your own gear now, whether you're in high school looking to get recruited this summer, or maybe trying to make your high school team as a youth player, everybody wants to pick up some fresh gear so they can play their best. There's only one place to do it. It's laxworld.com, and there's only one way to buy it, and it's with code BAGPOD, BAGPOD, BAGPOD. I'll tell you what, if you guys want gear, you got to hit their clearance website. You got to check out their sales. They are always coming up with something new. They always have the freshest stuff, and I'll tell you what, I like going through there and just looking to see what I can get. Pick up maybe 2 or 3 shafts, maybe pick up an extra head. I like the more flashy gear like you guys heard in the episode. They always have some of that. So go ahead and check it out. Free shipping, no minimum, BAGPOD, BAGPOD, and we will see you guys on the field. All right, guys, so this company is the real deal Holyfield. Fresh mitts. We talked a little bit about them last week. This company will make your life so much easier. You guys come off the field, hands smell disgusting, your girlfriend's yelling at you, your mom is like, oh, your hands smell, your coach is making fun of you for having gross gloves. This stuff takes care of everything. So it comes in a little hockey puck size can. Listen to this. Rock hard. Can't break it. Brooksy's got one tossed in his bag. I have one in my bag. I actually used it last night at my game. This stuff's perfect. So it's scientifically developed. What it is a cream that after the game, hands smell, open the can up, take a little dab, rub it in, boom, done. Hands smell great. 75 uses per the jar. Kills the bacteria, moisturizes your skin. It's fast, dry, grease-free, and you're done. That's it. You go on with your day. Doesn't smell like, flowers. It's just a nice manly smell, and it's perfect. I'm telling you, I wish I had this when I was in high school and college, because during the summer when you play for a while and your hands really start to smell, you can't get it off, whether you're trying to use a little hand soap, whether you're trying to use, Lysol, whatever you're trying to use, you can't get any of that stuff off. So this stuff is perfect, takes care of it, no problem. Check them out, Fresh Mitts. They're all over the internet, freshmitts.com. They have Instagram, Twitter, the whole deal. But I'm telling you, go pick it up and stay tuned to our social media this weekend when Brooksy's going to take over our Instagram account and show you what it's like inside the Florida Launch locker room and practice fields. And he'll definitely have his Fresh Mitts with him.
Problem is you have to have a high temperature material that won't melt in the mold, and so the yellow was Kevlar, and that was literally, we've always wanted to go with a white material, but they don't make Kevlar in white, so we had to find a supplier that made a exotic yarn that wouldn't melt, and it took us a year, but we found it, and then it not only does it play better, but it looks a hell of a lot better. So it has an amazing look to it, and the pocket platform is basically Rob Pinnell's been involved in it from the beginning, and so he's had his signature on it, and he's been a tremendous help as far as getting that thing going. And then the next big one that launches in August, you'll start seeing it in the MLO, is going to be Paul Rabel's pocket.
Oh, really?
Paul's is totally different. I don't know if he posted Paul posted a first generation of it on Instagram yesterday. He didn't tell anybody what it was, but Paul's pocket, I'll send you a picture of it. Paul's pocket, the diamonds are a lot bigger. So, for the guy who wants to basically just two-hand cradle and run through everybody and take, 35 checks and still get a shot off. Lots of guys do that now, but when they go to shoot, the ball goes straight at their feet, right, or they can't complete a touch pass because the stick has so much whip on it. Mm-hmm. This thing has that crazy hold, but then when it comes time to do the touch pass or touch shot or rip it, the ball is going to, come right out of the stick.
Sounds like my type. That sounds like my type of pocket.
Or if you're not as talented, you can just get checked 12 times and still be able to shoot. That's more my game.